What happens when your ex finally breaks? So this is after they've broken up with you. Maybe you've tried to get them back. You've tried to talk to them. Maybe you've tried the no contact rule and you're waiting patiently and you're getting frustrated and you're wondering, what's it going to be like when they finally break, if they finally break? So number one, it's important for you to know that your ex will try to stick with it. That's why when I'm on coaching sessions with a lot of you and you'll tell me it's been 2 weeks or it's been 11 days, and you don't understand why they haven't reached out, do they not miss you, why they don't want to get back together. And I'll say, not enough time has passed. And a lot of the reason that's the case is because even when it's difficult, even if it hurts, they will try to stick with it. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that this didn't just come to them overnight. Like I've mentioned before, this is something that has probably been on your ex's mind for a long time. They've had conversations with themselves. They've had sleepless nights. They have thought, I'll just give it through the weekend. Maybe things will change. I'll wait till this trip is over. But finally, as you might imagine, when you're just dealing with something and thinking about it and leaning towards something, finally you just decide it's time. I need to do something about it because it's not changing. It's not going away. Now, ideally, they would talk to you about these things and you two could work on things, or they would learn about limerence and how no relationship can have those sky-high feelings and passion and all that forever, that it will fade for everyone, and you will develop more of a companionate family type of love that's not always sky-high passion. And so basically the fuel of the relationship changes to where instead of passion, limerence, fueling it, it becomes companionate love, and that's the fuel of it. And so that's what a lot of people can't handle. And so they can get to that point where they say, I want this over with because my feelings have changed. And that's not necessarily what they'll tell you. They might say, I need to work on myself, which really means nothing. It's just an excuse they think you can't argue with, or that you deserve better, which also means nothing. It's just an excuse they think you can't argue with, and they'll leave. And so when they start to miss you, a lot of times they will remember that they have thought about this for a long time and that they made their mind up. And so they will think, if I have thought about this for so long and now I'm dealing with a couple of weeks, it's really not that long of a time frame. So they think that it doesn't make sense for them to reach back out to you simply because the amount of time that they have struggled with being without you is so much smaller than the amount of time that they struggled being with you. And so they will try to stick with it. And a lot of times I notice this happens more with women than men, but it can happen with men. It does seem to happen more with women, but they will kind of get a support group around them, and those people will encourage them to stick with the breakup. And I've just noticed this a lot with women, that women tend to have groups that kind of like to have a hand in their romantic life. Sometimes they maybe even meddle, but they will try to push them maybe toward another guy, or they will just remind them how unhappy they were in the relationship and that they should stick with it and stay independent and all that. And men, of course, can have people around them telling them the same thing, especially if he complained about mistreatment, rejection, bickering, or whatever happened in the relationship for either person. If they complained about that to their friends, then their friends are going to be cheerleaders. They're going to be reminding them, you said she mistreated you. You said he mistreated you, whatever the situation is. And they are going to encourage them to stay with the breakup. So you have these two things factoring in here, that it's not just the person who's saying, I want to stick with this because I wanted to do this for a while, and my guess is these feelings will change and I won't miss him or her as much as I am right now. And then they have friends telling them the same thing, or telling them, go date this person, get back out there, the cliches. And so instead of trying to encourage two people to work it out, they're encouraging them to stick with the breakup. So you have those two factors, and they know what it looks like if they were to come to you shortly after and want to get back together and then break up with you again. They don't want to look crazy. They don't want to look unstable. And so if they still have some doubt, that's enough to make them stick with it too. And one more thing I need to add before I get to point number 2 is that if you were pressuring them after the breakup and you really wouldn't back off, now, first let me say, it's okay. It happens that you will tell them, I don't want the breakup. I think we're great together. Please reconsider this. That's perfectly normal. And if you did that, that's fine. But it's when it's been maybe weeks of it or longer, months of it, and you would be emotional, you would really pressure them, you would not stay away even when they asked you to, and you wouldn't bow out gracefully. That can cause a third factor that can make them stay away. And basically it's where they think that if they lead you on, if they come back and they decide that they really do want the breakup and they leave again, they have to go through dealing with that all over again. And that's pretty difficult. That can cause a lot of anxiety. That's one of the reasons they will get cruel sometimes after a breakup, is that if you are pressuring them and they feel like you're standing in the way of their freedom and them getting what they want, they can really start to feel anxiety whenever they think about you, because in many ways, you're kind of a loose cannon. You're kind of unpredictable, because if you've ever been around someone who won't take no for an answer, they won't leave you alone, it can be pretty odd. It can even be intimidating, especially if you're talking about someone dealing with a man who's strong, bigger, and all that kind of thing. It can be intimidating. And so it can cause anxiety and make them want to be as far away from you as possible. And of course, guys can feel this too, just because if someone will not take no for an answer, she keeps showing up, keeps calling, gets emotional and cries, and that kind of thing, it can cause the exact same thing. And so if that's been in the situation, then that's something they're going to consider, because they don't want to have to go through that again if they get back in the relationship and change their mind. So keep that in mind as I go through these next few points. So even if you've done those things and you've messed up, there still can be a point where if you will stay away, if you will use the simple, tried and true no contact rule that I talk about a lot, that you can actually get them to think about it differently, mostly because you're not bugging them, you're not preventing them from getting away, so they don't feel like you're standing in the way of their freedom, which makes them romanticize it and glamorize it even more, to think, if I could just get free, it would be so amazing, because you won't let them do it. But when you finally give that to them, hopefully there hasn't been too much damage done. Oftentimes it just delays things, but they can get to a point where they miss you, they think they want the relationship again, but they don't know what to do. They don't know how to handle it, because it's really unusual that someone will break up with somebody and then reach back out and say, I was wrong, I want to get back together. It can really hurt their pride. It's kind of humiliating, like, I broke up with you, but now I'm coming back asking if you'll take me back. And when someone breaks up with a person, a lot of times they don't have much empathy for them, because they have become so used to the idea over months, maybe even years, that they don't feel emotion connected to it anymore, and they want out so badly that they really don't feel sympathy for what you're going through. And I've heard some horrible stories of people who were together for years and seemed to have great relationships, and then this person broke up with them and they were awful to them, and they seemed to just completely care nothing about their pain, that the pain that this person was going through because they were breaking up with them. And that's one thing I want to encourage you. If you are going through a breakup and it's hurting, remember that. Don't become what hurt you one day if you do break up with someone in the future. Remember how painful it is. At least treat them with compassion. At least give it your all and try. At least hear them out, because it will mean a lot to them. It's difficult to go through this, as you know. It's a loss and it hurts, and it's not something that people can just snap their fingers and get over. So remember that in the future. Don't become the same thing that hurt you right now. Always have compassion for people. But if they reach that point where they think they want to get back together with you, they can feel that and want that and have no idea what to do. And some of that can be, even if you didn't do the wrong things after the breakup, if after a few days you finally said, okay, fine, and you bowed out gracefully, you didn't keep sending letters or keep sending one last message, you just backed away and disappeared. If that's the case, you did well, but they could still be wondering what they need to do. And a lot of it's intimidating. Like, how do I get to that point? Because a lot of times they will think you're going to reject them, because once they do regain some of that empathy and they get over that numb, stone cold state that they're in at the breakup, and they kind of have to do that. They bring themselves to that point because they know it's going to be difficult for you and they just want to get it over with. But when they get out of that and they can feel some empathy for you, they can realize what they have done to you. And sometimes they will think that you won't take them back, that you will reject them. And it's kind of ironic that they break up with you, but then their concern is that you will reject them. But we're all human, and we all look out for number one in large degree, though we should care about other people and look out for other people as well. But they will think, I really hurt her. I really hurt him. If I ask them to take me back, they might just say, forget about it. Or you know where you can go, because they can get to a point where they realize what they have done. They realize how much they hurt you. And so it can be intimidating to actually go through with it and tell you they want you back. So that can be another layer of delay, another layer of frustration on your side when you're trying to be patient and you're wondering if you should just try to move on with your life completely. And as I've said in other videos and I say on coaching calls, patience can be your superpower. At some point, and I really push this, I really believe that you should give yourself a time frame where if they have not made effort to get back together with you, or at least to be in contact with you again and start interacting with you, that at that point you will choose to move on. Even though it's painful, you will start taking the steps. And usually for people, I say somewhere between 3 and 6 months. That's reasonable. If you want to wait and see if this person changes their mind, that's your business. It's not that long of a time in the grand scale of things, but you do need to pick out a time frame so that you just don't wait around forever indefinitely, but that emotionally you can kind of feel that clock ticking. You know you have a few more weeks or whatever left, and you can kind of start to prepare yourself for that. It can be difficult. I know that. Of all people, I know that. I've done this for over 20 years. I've talked to thousands of people about this, and you can book a coaching session with me on my website, which is myexbackcoach.com, myexbackcoach.com. And that's where you can get my emergency breakup kit as well, which is a powerful guide to help you get your ex back. And it's with compassion. And I make sure to go over the basics as well as some of the more advanced strategies with this, but also to let you know what to expect and what to expect when they start interacting with you and coming back around, which is really important because a lot of people, it's kind of like when a dog is chasing a rabbit. Do we really think he knows what he's going to do if he catches it? And that's kind of how it is with you. If you're waiting on your ex, you're in no contact, you're working on yourself, even working on trying to move on, and all of a sudden they do come back. Well, now what? Because that's a really vulnerable place. It can be very awkward. It can be frustrating. It can feel differently, which can make them think, oh, well, I guess I made the right decision anyway. And so I go over that in the emergency breakup kit because the last thing you want to do is to get them back and then lose them again because you didn't handle that delicate time frame like you should have. So I go over that in the emergency breakup kit as well. And you can get more information on that at myexbackcoach.com/EBK as an emergency breakup kit, myexbackcoach.com/EBK. So just know that it could be that they are really wanting you back and they're not sure what to do based on several of the things that I've mentioned so far. And when they get to the breaking point, this is what usually happens. So we're going now to point number 3. They reach out casually. And again, on coaching sessions and emails I get, messages to me on Instagram, people will say, I don't understand. My ex just reached out and said, how have you been? And they asked about my dog, and they asked about my job, and they asked about whatever else, and never mentioned getting back together, meeting face to face, or anything like that. What does that mean? A lot of times it means that they don't know what to do. That they think maybe if I reach out, it will just kind of naturally come up in conversation, or they might think that you will request a face-to-face or request getting back together with them. They're not sure. They just know that as the clock continues to tick, that you could get away from them. That's that part of no contact I talk about that makes them feel the loss. It kind of flips the tables. And so they figure, I'll just contact this person. I'll just reach out and maybe something will happen because they don't know what else to do. And it can be really frustrating for someone on your end of this simply because you're wanting them to say, I'm sorry, I miss you, I want to get back together. And sometimes they do that. That's the best case scenario when they are just direct. It's easier on everybody. Everyone appreciates when someone is direct about this. Nobody likes to have to interpret clues or breadcrumbs or figure this out because none of us are mind readers. And it would really help so many relationships if people stopped expecting the other person to read their mind, because that's not a gift that most human beings were given. And if someone claims to have that gift, they're lying. So don't expect it. Be direct if you're in this situation and you want your ex back. But usually the person in this situation is not going to be direct, and they just think that if they interact with you, it will happen somehow. So that can be what's going on. That doesn't mean that you fill in the gap for them and you make it easy on them. Remember, they left the relationship. It's their job to come back to it. And that means doing the work of this. That doesn't mean that you can't make it easier for them to do this because it is difficult and you want them back. Number 4, they might ask if you're dating. And now see, they're kind of thinking that they're moving this forward. They're getting a little more serious and that maybe this is a clue you'll figure out that they're interested. And I know this because I've talked to people in the situation and they will say, I asked if he was dating. I thought maybe he would get what I was saying. Again, the person in that situation is not a mind reader, but that is a clue. and it can be helpful. But even then, it's kind of putting the pressure back on you. It's putting the work back on you when this other person is the one who left. They should have to do this. This should be something that they will be clear about. And I encourage you to wait for them to be clear before you take big actions. But at the same time, if they continue to do this kind of thing and ask about your romantic life, ask about your day-to-day life, and they are contacting you a lot, I'm telling you that it very well could be they don't know how to say it. They can't bring themselves to it. They're intimidated. They're afraid of rejection. And they feel in some ways like they don't deserve to even ask because they realize that they hurt you. So that is a situation where, again, if they are contacting you regularly and it's going good and they seem interested and they're consistently reaching out, that's when you could say, we should get coffee and catch up. When are you free this week? And again, that's if that's what you want. Now, some people say, no, I want this person to do the work. All of it. I get that. I'm just telling you that sometimes you can actually help the situation out by doing that. And sometimes people can just give up and it can start feeling awkward or just kind of weird between you because they are wanting this to happen. They don't know how to make it happen and they run out of things to talk about. And so they just kind of give up. I've seen that too. So keep that in mind that people come back in different ways and that if it seems like they're obvious and they're really moving towards you and they're interested, that you could simply say, we should catch up when you're free for coffee, and that could lead to a kiss or something. And that can be the easier route to get back together without a big, difficult conversation. And if you want to talk more about strategies like that, you can book a coaching session with me on my website, myexpatcoach.com. Number 5, this is kind of the best case scenario here. They will take action. And I get a lot of emails where that does happen a lot, where the person will say, I messed up, I was wrong. Could we talk, or would you consider taking me back, and things like that. That's the appropriate response. That's what they should do. When they've broken up with you, they've walked away from the relationship, they should have to do the work of coming back to it, being clear, and giving you a little bit of validation in this, which you deserve after they just dumped you and walked out on you, in my opinion. And a lot of times when they ask you to meet them face to face, they will try things that seem easier than being direct. They might kiss you, for example, or they might cry. And when you say what's wrong, they'll just shake their heads and they can't speak. That's oftentimes what women will do. And I'll tell men, if this happens, you need to be comforting and assume that basically what she's saying is, I want to get back together. I don't know what to say. And I'm really hurting and frustrated because I want you back. I miss you and I love you. And I can't get the words out. I understand it's a difficult situation. They should say it. You deserve it. If they don't, again, if you want this person back, you might have to give a little, because if they've asked you to get face to face, they're doing a lot here, and that's good. And you can simply take action. Again, it could be hugging, could be kissing, and that can be easier than a conversation. A lot of times I have had people get back together by kissing, and then they have lunch, and then they go to dinner, and it's like they start dating again, and they don't really have that conversation about getting back together. They just get back together without talking about it. And so that's an option too. Don't feel like if you two get back together and you haven't talked about it, that you have to talk about it. A good number of people get back together by action without having the difficult conversation. And it can be something that you refer to passively by talking about the future, starting some of those conversations that you used to have, that a couple would have. And that's kind of a message that basically you two are back together. And when you start referring to each other as, this is my boyfriend, this is my girlfriend, you're back together. And it can happen without the difficult conversations. I'm not saying that's the best way, but very little in life is just absolutely perfect with a neat bow tied around it. Sometimes things are a little bit messy, and that's okay. You could have the conversation at a point when you feel like you're very stable and basically just say, I'm glad we're back together. I missed you. Let's make sure this never happens again. And then focus on being grateful for your relationship. Focus on the positive. Don't look for issues. Don't put the magnifying glass over it and try to dig something up thinking you're going to make it better by bringing to light this issue and discussing it constantly and bringing up conflict and tension in your relationship. Usually that's not what makes it better. What makes a relationship better most of the time is by being grateful for what you have, putting energy into the positives, and treating the other person like you want to be treated. If those 3 things happen, usually the relationship is really good and it won't go through a breakup. Obviously, good relationships still have breakups, especially if someone is confused, but that's a better route in my opinion and based on over 20 years of experience and in having a master's in marriage and family counseling. Remember to get more information on my emergency breakup kit. You can do that at myexpatcoach.com. You can also book a call with me there at myexpatcoach.com. Please share this video with those who need it. Thank you for liking. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for subscribing. And thank you for watching.